out, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Railway Empire. In today's episode we're going to make a start on the Gold Rush scenario. Before we get started, as many of you will know from the recent post I made, I am ill with COVID at the moment. Now thankfully it isn't as bad as it could be, touch wood. It's just manifesting as quite a heavy cold stroke flu symptoms at the moment. So I'm dosing up with the usual medication, paracetamol and ibuprofen and all that good stuff, Sudafed for the congestion. So I do feel reasonably human, however my voice may sound a little bit different, and that is because I'm very nasally, very congested, so I do apologise for that if it sounds a little off. I am trying my best, but since I feel reasonably human at the moment, like I said, I thought I'd go ahead and make a start on this scenario. That way I don't recording schedule. So yes, we're going to tackle the Gold Rush. Now, as many of you know, if you've played this one, you don't have competitors in this scenario, and that can be a blessing because you don't have anyone to compete with. However, it does mean you can't use the manual pause mode because you can't offset that by setting very hard AI levels, so we're going to have to play on normal pause mode this time. Now, after conversations in the comments, I am going to go for a different character, and as you can probably tell from this screen here, we're going to go for the lady. Now, the lady is brilliant on this scenario, absolutely brilliant. I mean, you can do it with the engineer as well, and I have done it many times with the engineer, achieving that perfect score. However, just to mix it up a bit, we're going to go for the lady, and she does have some strong bonuses here. These two, obviously they are geared towards passenger and mail lines, but she can really print money on this scenario, so she's a good one to go for. So let's try it with the lady this time around. Now, because we can't pause it manually and look in the task screen, we're not going to have time straight away to go through the tasks and discuss strategies, so I'm going to have to basically explain the strategy as I go along. And when we get to a point when we can actually look at the task screen, say we're accumulating money for a future build, then of course we will go into the task screen there while waiting for that money to build up. But for now, let's get cracking straight away. So I've demolished the starting station and I'm going to replace it with one of the same size. However, I just want to reposition it ever so slightly because the starting positions for the stations are never that good. And I know a lot of people focus on passenger and mail lines first of all, for example to Sacramento, and then you have an automatic line to Shasta, and then you have a passenger line between Shasta and Sacramento, passenger line to Carson City, passenger line to Bodie, passenger line to Winnemucca, Elko, and so on and so forth. However, I'm sure we've all seen those strategies, and yes, they absolutely do work and you can get a good score with it. However, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I've tested it 3 times to completion, and every single time I've been able to achieve a gold tick for all of the tasks, which obviously guarantees you that president rating that we all want. And I've also tried it twice without hiring any of the freelance personnel, so no market criers, no promoters, and I was still able to achieve all the tasks with relative comfort. So that's what we're going to be doing today. That way, if you don't get as lucky as perhaps I might get with getting promoters, for example, it doesn't make a difference because I'm not going to be using them. Train staff and office staff, yes, we'll take those of course, but those promoters, especially the promoters, we're going to overlook them in their entirety. So let's get started then. So I've got our station in San Francisco, and I'm going to put one over here in Carson City. And the first line we're going to run is a line from Carson City to San Francisco. Now, the elephant in the room is the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Now, you probably can't afford to tunnel straight through, not with your 1 million give or take that you have to begin with. So in a sense, what we're going to have to do is take a page from history and essentially recreate the Donner Pass. And I believe I'm using the correct, I believe my history is correct there, shall we say, and it was the Donner wagon train party what famously crossed in this method, and obviously we all know they suffered a very tragic series of events during their crossing of the mountains into California, or the coast of California. Thankfully, we shouldn't suffer any such tragedies. But yes, we're going to manipulate a line through the mountain range, and we're going to go over the top of the mountains. Now, you can later on, when money becomes slightly less relevant, or slightly, less of a concern, shall we say, you can relay this track and tunnel through if you want to, but you don't have to. And I'm trying to get this just right, because I know that if we go for... well, first of all, I'm trying to get rid of this bridge here, obviously. Don't want that bridge. But what I don't want is too much of a cutting here, because when we try to set the double track up, it will get grumpy and say you're excavating too much material, you can't do it. Now, I think that may be enough. Now, obviously, the gradients here, you just got to bite the bullet. You can't do much about them at all. But that's fine. Anyway, we've cleared the mountains, so we need to make our way down now, and that's relatively straightforward, of course. Of course, just because we're out of the mountains doesn't mean the terrain gets any easier, as veterans of this scenario will tell you. One of the biggest challenges in this scenario is the terrain that you have to deal with. Now, let's just see if we can do a little something about this without spending too much money. I think that's going to be okay. And this is going to connect into that terminal there. So 300,000. I dare say that's a reasonable price to pay for crossing the Sierra Nevada without any tunnels, so I'm happy to pay for that. Now, hopefully we've positioned this track just so that we can double track the entire length, and yes, we have. Now, we have a little bridge there, but that's fine. Now, if you're trying to follow along this strategy, if you can't quite get this pass to work, and you get those little red sections where you can't double track, then it's not the end of the world at all. It doesn't really matter. Just bring your track in as close as you can, and then immediately double track, or split off again as soon as you're able to. So you might have a small stretch. It's usually around here and here where you might go down to single track, but it's not going to break anything. You're going to be just fine. Anyway, we can put some signals down now, and I don't know why it doesn't want to put a signal there, but we'll put one down there manually. So that's signalled all the way between Carson City and San Francisco. And now we're going to put a supply tower, not a signal tower, a supply tower there. And we'll have one there. And then we'll immediately set 4 trains in motion. Now, contrary to what a lot of people do, I'm not going to specify passenger and mail only lines. I'm going to keep most of my lines as automatic or freight only. I'm not going to set them as passenger. There'll be a few instances where we do have a passenger mail only line. However, for the most part, they will be automatic. And the reason behind that is quite simple. Eventually, these cities around here are going to start growing. And they're going to get secondary and tertiary industries, and those industries may complement each other. For instance, we might end up with a weaving factory in Shasta and a dressmakers in Sacramento, so we want to make sure that they can exchange those goods. Likewise, we might put a distillery in Sacramento when we want the liquor to be transported to San Francisco, so we're keeping them as automatic just for that reason. So you may stand to lose a little bit early doors from passenger revenue, but I've tried it this way 3 times now, as I said, and each time it's worked, so it's still more than achievable, and I'd not worry too much about the potential for a slight drop in passenger income. You can more than compensate in my experience. Anyway, at this point we need to take out a bond, so we'll do that, and then we'll build ourselves a small station in Shasta, like so. And we'll connect it in like that. And then we'll bring out a double track back to there. And let's put some signals down here. So when the trains out this supply tower here, their back end could block in this junction. Now I want to avoid that, so I'm going to spend a little bit of money here and actually have two separate supply towers for this line. I'm going to have one just by the bridge here and one just by the bridge here. They should be far enough away that any train being filled up should not block in this junction. And where's our clearing tool? Do you know what? I think we could probably get away with one there as well. So we'll see how that does for us. Now these lines are going to be sharing a platform. Again, you may lose out slightly while your trains are waiting to get on the platform. But as I said, in my experience, it's not going to completely undermine your progress. So just go with it. Anyway, yeah, Shasta San Francisco, get your words out. And again, we'll have 4 trains on this line. So both of those trains are going to start bringing in the gold to San Francisco, which if you're a veteran of this scenario, you know is one of the early tasks to accomplish. And given that gold is classed as a freight good, you're also working towards that goal of transporting, I think it's 200 freight cars. In the meantime then, what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing in some cattle into San Francisco, and we're going to come from this side of the cattle ranch and head down the hill. Now this does mean the terrain or the gradient is going to be a little steep here. However, because we're running downhill when we're fully laden and then heading up the hill when we are empty, that gradient shouldn't pose too much of a problem because we're not pulling the weight up the hill. Gravity is doing the work for us as we're heading down. Anyway, we need some money, so now is a good time to look at the task list. So there's the first one, so that's done nice and quick. Here's one I mentioned there about the transporting freight, 200 cartloads. There's the transportation of the gold, so if you achieve that one, you automatically achieve that one. 5,000 passengers isn't a problem. This one can be a bit of a challenge, as can this one. However, the strategy I've devised tends to make this one fairly straightforward. And moving on, we have this one that is extremely straightforward. There's no problems with that. This one can sometimes be a problem. However, again, following this strategy, you should be okay. A university in LA is not a problem. And the 2,000 passengers from Salt Lake City to San Francisco will also not be a problem. So let's see where we stand. So we need 52,000. So we're still some way off paying for this track yet. As I said, we're not going to bother with any freelancers. Just to demonstrate that you can do this without any element of good fortune, shall we say, from acquiring back-to-back promoters, for instance. So we're just going to let these trains roll on into San Francisco to deliver us a nice payday. Now initially they are going to be very bunched up as we can see, but over time they will space themselves out. And look, we have a promoter, but as promised we're not going to utilise them. Instead we're just going to trust to the strategy, and I apologise if that sounds a bit conceited or big-headed, but I have tested it, it works, and I wanted to provide a strategy that anybody can go along with, and they're not reliant on, like I said, any amount of luck in terms of what personnel they can hire at any time. So now we've paid for the track to the cattle ranch, let's put down a small number of signals at the station there, and as per usual that is just so we can queue the trains up while they're waiting to load. Now this will be a freight only line. In this scenario I'm not going to bother with the rail cars, so we're not going to be bothering with refrigerator cars or mail cars or dining cars or the caboose. We're just going to run the trains as they are by default. Any train personnel we will just auto hire, however we will do some manipulation of that a little bit later, and that's when we need to set up the express line down to LA. In terms of my research, I'm going to mainly focus on, let's open the right page, mainly focus on this page initially. I want to get all the way down to this unlock. I want to get these as well, hopefully this one. and if possible this one as well. Now we don't really have to worry too much about the locomotives. We have no competitors, so we're not in danger of our locos becoming antiquated and outdated before their time, because we're the only player on the map. We can use whatever trains we want, and we don't, like I said, have to worry that they're going to suddenly fall behind in speed and power and capability because there's no one else to challenge us. Okay, so let's just accelerate while we let these trains settle in and build us up a little bit more money. And what we're going to do next is connect to Sacramento. So we want 40,000 for that, and we're going to put our station just there. And the way we're going to connect is just tap into the existing line, and that's going to save us quite a lot of money because we're not paying for separate tracks all the way up to Shasta. And we're going to do the same to Carson City. So again, these will be sharing this platform here. Obviously the Shasta trains coming in from this direction and our Carson City trains from this direction, but it is absolutely fine. It works okay. So let's just attend to our signals here, because that signal is far too short. We don't want that there. That signal is also probably too short. Let's just pull that one forward, and we can probably get away with one there as well. So let's set up that first line from Sacramento into Shasta. Again, keeping it as automatic. So we'll have 2 trains on this line. And as I said, now focusing on the company and construction tech page for the foreseeable future. So yes, there's 2 trains anyway to Shasta. And now what we're going to do is connect into the line that heads up to Carson City, and we'll connect in about there. We don't want that bridge, and yes, I know that means we have quite a steep gradient here, but it's fine. So 37,000 for the double track. So we've just got the dragon there, so you may think, oh, you know, you might not get that lucky, you might not get the auction for the dragon at the same time. Doesn't matter, because I don't plan on using the dragon for a good while yet. We're going to stick with the Philadelphia. And again, that's just to try and make this this strategy as open, I suppose is a word, as it can be, and less reliant on getting a bit of good fortune. So anyway, now let's do a line from Sacramento to Carson City, shall we? Again, automatic line. And we are going to stick to the Philadelphia. And like we did to Shasta, we are going to run 2 trains to Carson City from Sacramento. There we go. Okay. So now what we want to do is to make sure we can keep Carson City experiencing almost perpetual growth as much as we can. So we can supply wheat fairly easily, and we can also supply logs fairly easily as well. So to achieve that, we're going to put, oh, what do we have here? A connection bonus. Okay, so yes, there's a bit of good fortune here with depending on what connection bonuses appear and whatnot. So that one you can't really avoid. If you see a connection bonus and it's fairly straightforward to get to, then you may as well just go for it. Again, it's not gonna make or break the scenario. We're gonna connect to Bodie at some point anyway, so just doing it now is fine. It's a little earlier than I usually would do, but there we go. So what do we have? That's that task taken care of, and we're halfway to this one as well, and we're 30% of the way to that one. So let's get into Bodie, and like before, we'll double track it. There we go, and obviously we've just used that connection bonus there to pay for the double tracking. Let's put a supply tower at the midway point. And let's get ourselves some automatic lines here. And again, sticking to automatic rather than passenger and mail. And as I said, we're not going to bother with the rail cars either. So we are losing out on some income here. the act of not using the rail cars isn't crucial to the strategy at all. If you want to go ahead and use them, be my guest, it makes no odds. I just prefer not to, because as you get towards the end and you're trying to get lines set up as quickly as you can, I often forget to include them anyway, so I'm just not going to bother from the start. That's just personal preference. It's nothing to do with the intrinsic success of the strategy itself. So now we're going to expand this station here. That's that one now taken care of. And what we're going to do is something a little bit strange, but you'll see what I'm going to do in a minute, and you'll see why, well, quite a bit later actually. But what we're going to do now is actually delete that line and that line there. And we're going to have this run into that platform instead. Like so. Now the reason is, eventually we're going to have a warehouse down here, and I want to be able to get out from one of these platforms without having to cross this line here. So I've just moved it over to another platform, which opens up these two for outflowing, or one for incoming goods and one for outgoing commodities. So yeah, we'd have done that later, but I'm just going to do it now while I was thinking about it. Anyway, moving on, as I said, we're going to see about getting Carson City growing as much as we can, as frequently as we can. So we're going to run a line up to this wheat farm, or this grain farm on the hill. Just get actual track construction there. Let's remove that little bridge. There we go. 64,000. I can tolerate that. That's not a bad price. And we're going to double track up to the farm for 59,000. There we go. Let's go ahead and put some signals, and again, by the station we'll put our bank of short signals there. And we want a supply tower, yes we do. I also realise at this point as well, we have no supply towers. Oh, we have that one. But we probably want to put another supply tower down here. So as soon as we can afford it, which we can, there we go, we'll put a supply tower there, and one there. Perfect. Oh, this line also needs a supply tower, of course it does. So let's put a supply tower there. Okay, that's that taken care of. So now let's get running some freight-only lines from Reed Manor to Carson City. That will be fully loaded with the Dragon. No, with the Philadelphia. Got ahead of myself there. And let's have 3 of those. Now what we're going to do next is from platform 4, which is obviously the platform that also serves the Bodie train, which is fine. We are going to run a line over to the city of Shasta. So it's going to scooch around all of these industries here. Just come away from that mountain just a touch. There we go. And yeah, they can share a platform. It's not ideal, but later on when we start to expand these stations, we can do what we did here and just take the track back just a touch and put it into a dedicated platform. But for now, just to get the ball rolling, I'm happy enough for them to share. So another promoter is available there, but again, we're not going to use any of those, so we'll disregard the promoter. Put the signals down on this line. We're going to want a supply tower up here somewhere, probably by this mountain. Like, say that. Oh, just lost the money. There we go. And then we're going to run some automatic lines from Shasta to Carson City with the Philadelphia. And we're going to have 4 of those. So there we go. So that's our initial moves set up. The next thing we're going to do is get another station in Carson City and bring in the logs into Carson City, and then we're also going to run a line to Winnemucca and then have a line from Winnemucca to Elko. So these will be automatic, as will this one as well. In fact, that one we will set it to passenger and mail because we will not be doing any growth in Winnemucca or Elko, so we don't have to forward predict what industries are going to be set up in there and whether they're going to be mutually beneficial or not. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to be growing the cities, you see. So let's just wait till we get the large train station, because that's what we want. We want the 2 platforms because we want one to Winnemucca and we want the one to the logging camp just to the north. Okay, so that's enough for a regular size station, and we'll pop that just there. So this first line is going to be a freight line that's going to supply the logs, and eventually it will also supply cotton, but that's a little ways down the line yet. So let's put our station here, connect that in like so, just straighten that out just a fraction, makes no difference but may as well. And in fact, let's not do that, good lord no. Let's do that. It's going to cost us a little bit more, but what the heck. Get this line nice and straight. And we will double track this, of course, like so. We'll do the short signals up at the station, and we'll put a supply tower there. So now we're setting up a freight only line from there to there with 8 cars, and we're going to run the Philadelphia, and we're going to take 2. So our next connection bonus is Winnemucca, which is quite fortunate because, as I said, that's where I was planning to head to next anyway, so we will take advantage of that. And again, if you don't get these connection bonuses, do not worry, it does not spell disaster. It is still more than possible to achieve the president rating and get your tasks done in time without the cash boost from these connection bonuses, so don't fret. Let's just speed the game up a little bit here. There we go. So with the 157,000, what we can do now is double track to Winnemucca. There we go. And we'll put a supply tower just there. And they're sharing that one there, but it does mean we need to do some more signal work, of course, after the supply tower. So let's do that. And then let's get ourselves an automatic line from Winnemucca to Carson City. And we'll have 4 as soon as we can afford them. And then, as Johnny Cash once said, if you're going to Winnemucca Mac with me, you can ride. So we're getting a lot of these breakdowns here due to bad condition, which is to be expected when you're not playing the engineer and not taking advantage of those free maintenance buildings, but it won't be a problem for much longer. What we're going to do next is upgrade this station here to a second platform, and we're going to have a line that runs from Winnemucca to Shasta because if we look here, we have plenty of people who want to go to Shasta, so we want to tap into that cash market because it can be very lucrative. So we want 60,000 like so, and then we're gonna come parallel there, but then break away so we can skirt around these industries here so we don't box them in. And we're just gonna connect into our passenger line here. Again, if that means trains have to wait a little while, that's fine, I can live with that. We'll take that, that's always a nice one to receive. So there's the first stretch of track. We're not going to be able to afford to double track it, of course, but we can at least get it staked out, so as soon as we do have the money we can just click go and we're there then, aren't we? All we have to do then is get the trains running. There we go. So let's get the signals in position here, and after that supply tower. And let's see here, you're probably a little short. You're in use, are you? Well, now you're not. And you're probably a little short as well. There we go. Let's just slow it down a second. So let's set up an automatic line from Winnemucca to Shasta. And we'll have 4 trains. Okay, so at this point we want to start getting rid of these messages here. So we're just gonna, as and when we can, upgrade all of our stations to include the maintenance building. Now that does mean when our trains arrive now, they're going to be in station for quite a while because they have a lot of maintenance to catch up on. But once they get on top of it, it's not going to be a problem. So just making sure we go through every station here, getting those maintenance buildings constructed. That does of course include these rural stations as well, we want them there. Okay, there we go. I do believe that is every station now kitted out with the maintenance building, which is great. So we have a slot for another industry. We're not going to be able to afford it, but we want them to build a weaving factory. Now, in my experience, they always will do that, and we have cotton readily available. So with a view to preempting the AI, we're going to put down a station up there. And we're going to link that station to this freight line that we have right here. And if we come in somewhere down here, then we know these logging trains have plenty of space to wait out of the way without blocking access for the cotton trains. Like that. Let's do our short signals here, shall we? They have a supply tower here. I don't think they'll need another one. So let's put a freight-only line from West Farm to Carson City, running, shall we say, 3 trains. So as we can see, Carson City has gone ahead and put down the weaving factory, which is exactly what we wanted them to do, because that's created demand for cotton, and it will also satisfy this demand as well. So we're hitting 2 commodities for the price of 1 there, which is always nice. Alright then, so the next thing we're going to do, although it might have to be in the next episode, because I don't want to overdo it with my voice due to the illness, so this episode might be a bit shorter than the usual Railway Empire ones, and I do apologise for that, but I'm sure you can cut me a little bit of slack just this once. So let's pause it, and yeah, we will leave it here. We've made a solid start and we're on track on all of our tasks. So the next stage of the expansion, we're going to put a warehouse here that links between these two industries. We're going to have this warehouse accept wheat and corn, as well as fruit and sugar and milk. And we have, well, multiple options for some of those in this fertile valley here. So a lot of these are going to be connected into this warehouse. We'll also have a warehouse, no we won't, we'll have a large station with signalling control here that links these two. And then if we want to connect into these and these as well, just to share the burden, we will do so. They'll all pass through this station here that has signalling control, obviously the milk as well. But those lines themselves, rather than just running from here to here, they'll run here up to the warehouse, but they'll pass through the station. And then from this warehouse, we'll have one line that goes to Carson City and one that goes to Bodie. We'll also have one that comes down to LA and one that comes down to San Diego. Over this side, we're going to put a warehouse over here somewhere. And again, that's going to be a large warehouse with signaling control. And we're going to supply that with logs, with sugar from either or both of these, with veggies, with wheat, and with corn, which is a little further afield, but it's no problem. So we'll run all this down, and yeah, I think we'll put the warehouse on this side of the river actually. And this warehouse will supply Shasta, Sacramento, and San Francisco. We'll also directly supply San Francisco from these two industries and from these two industries because they're so close by, so we'd be foolish not to do that. We'll get an express line down to LA. Now these two cities, they both have the meat factory, so we're going to purchase the one that exists in San Diego and replace it with a beer manufactory. We'll supply the cattle into LA from this ranch here, and then these two will exchange goods between themselves. Obviously the wheat for San Diego will be coming from this warehouse up here, so they'll have mutual growth right there, and that will help them too. As they expand and require new industries, we'll handpick which industries we want to make sure we have mutual growth. For example, we might put a textile manufacturer in LA because we can supply it from here, and then we'll put a dress manufacturers in San Diego so they have that mutual boost. We will put another warehouse down here-ish, somewhere on this side. And this warehouse is going to be our holding position, our holding place for all of our manufactured goods. So the meat that San Francisco produces and Sacramento will be shipped into this warehouse. The beer that is produced by Carson City and Bodie will also come into this warehouse. The textiles that Carson City is producing will be brought in, and eventually when we get to this stage, so will the liquor. And then from that warehouse it will supply these four cities, and that will guarantee that these four tip over the 80,000 threshold, or 100,000 as it may be for Carson City. Shasta shouldn't need much extra special attention. I've found in the 3 attempts I've done recently that just giving it enough supply from this warehouse here that's having these commodities is enough to tip that into growth. And then the last city we're going to do is Salt Lake City. If you remember, one of the other objectives we have is to transport 2,000 people from here down into San Francisco without stopping. So if we can grow this city, that'll make that task that little bit easier. And this city we will supply with cattle because it has a meat industry, so we'll bring cattle in. We'll bring in grain and logs, and that will help it grow. We shouldn't need anything else from up here, but if we do need anything else, we can tap into this vegetable farm and this corn farm here. Again, it's a fair distance, but it's doable. However, what we will be doing is coming down here to the south of the Grand Canyon and bringing in some milk and some corn. If we don't use the corn farm up in Washington, we'll use one of the corn farms down here and ship it up. And we'll, I think that's all we need to bring in from down here. but we'll definitely need the milk. And that should be enough to get Salt Lake City to 80,000, especially if we put down a beer manufactory when this city starts to expand, bearing in mind we're going to be supplying it with plenty of grain from this farm here, so this will have both meat and beer, and that will help its growth. And again, in my experience, that is usually enough to get Salt Lake City over 80,000. And in every single test playthrough that I have done that has been a success recently, it's been Salt Lake City which has been the last city to hit 80,000, and that's also been the last objective. So as soon as Salt Lake City hits that 80,000, ordinarily that's when my task has been, well, the scenario has been completed to the gold standard. So hopefully that will ring true again, although it doesn't really matter if, for example, it's Bodhi we're waiting for. It matters not. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It might be a little bit on the short side compared to most of my Railway Empire videos, but as I said, I'm sure you'll make allowances due to the coronavirus that is currently inhabiting my body and keeping my immune system up all night, and certainly earning its money's worth this time around, so hopefully it won't linger around too much longer. Thankfully, like I said at the start, it's not manifested as anything more than a very, very heavy and very, very annoying cold, so there we go. So what we'll do now is I'm going to save it, and that way we can have a cab ride. And since we have this lovely mountain pass here that we constructed, I think we'll take a ride from Carson City into San Francisco, or maybe San Francisco into Carson City. So I'll save it now, that way we won't accelerate any further through the date while we're on our cab ride, and then we can pick it back up in episode 2 right here on February the 1st. Okay then, so here we are, just about to depart San Francisco after they finish loading us up, and here we go. So thank you very much for watching. As I said, I hope you've enjoyed the episode, even if my voice has been a little bit off this time around. Hopefully, like I said, it won't linger for too much longer. As always, I do welcome your comments and your feedback, so please leave them in the comment section there down below. And of course there is the Discord channel, and for those of you who want to show your support, there is also the Patreon channel that is now live as well. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, from a very croaky me, all that remains for me to say is take very good care of yourselves. It's ta-ta for now.